Hey everyone, so today's video is actually a theory video, but it does contain spoilers to Chapter 13 of The Mandalorian, The Jedi. So if you have not watched that yet, please just save this video for later. Alright, let's dive in. So in Chapter 13 of The Mandalorian, Ahsoka Tano is able to commune with the child through the Force. This allows them both to share their thoughts with each other. And through this, Ahsoka learns that the child's name is Grogu, and he was raised in the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. At the end of the Clone Wars, when the Empire rose to power, he was hidden and then taken from the temple. After that, his memory goes dark. And this leads me to think that maybe Palpatine took him from the temple. Let's imagine the scenario for a moment. As the clones led by Anakin Skywalker marched up the steps of the Jedi Temple, the younglings were told to hide. Most of them retreat to the Jedi Council chambers, but one youngling, Grogu, is hidden somewhere else. During the brutal attack, Grogu's small size allows him to stay hidden from the numerous clone troopers and Anakin. The attack on the temple would soon be over with all of the Jedi killed, but Grogu would remain hidden, scared, and alone. After the temple was secured, Palpatine or Darth Sidious would arrive to inspect the work of his new apprentice. He would then send Anakin to Mustafar to wipe out the rest of the Separatist Council. This moment is captured on the Jedi Temple security holograms that Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda watch later. After Anakin leaves the temple, I imagine Palpatine walking through the temple, relishing the defeat of the Jedi, until he senses the presence of another Force-sensitive being. Grogu's hiding place had kept him alive during Anakin's rage-filled attack, but it would not be able to hide him from Palpatine. Discovering the scared Jedi youngling, Palpatine would take particular interest in him. Now, let me set up a little backstory to explain why Palpatine would take Grogu from the temple rather than kill him. During the Clone Wars, Palpatine, as Darth Sidious, hired the bounty hunter Cad Bane to steal a holocron from the Jedi Temple that contained a list of Force-sensitive children. Sidious paid Cad Bane to kidnap 4 children from the list and bring them to Mustafar in order to be test subjects. He intended to create an army of dark-side spies with these children, assuming they survived the procedure. Now, we don't get too many more details on this plot, as the Jedi soon arrived on Mustafar in search of the missing children. Sidious ordered the medical droid to destroy everything and take the children to another facility. However, the Jedi are able to rescue the children. Shortly after the events of Order 66, we find out that Palpatine is still seeking Force-sensitive children. In the Vader comics from 2017, we get an encounter between Vader and the Jedi archivist Jocasta Nu that reveals Palpatine's secret goals. Now, if you watched my breakdown of The Mandalorian Chapter 13, you know that my first thought was that Jocasta Nu smuggled Grogu out of the temple. Shortly after the temple fell to the Empire, she snuck back into the temple archives in order to recover a holocron that contained the names of every Force-sensitive child cataloged prior to Order 66. It would have been easy for her to smuggle Grogu out of the temple as well, especially if she was the one who initially hid Grogu. But after going back and reading the comic, which is actually a pretty epic story of the old Jedi archivist going head-to-head with Darth Vader, I realized it doesn't make sense for her to be the one to take Grogu from the temple, as she meets a fiery doom at the hands of Vader. And the Jocasta Nu theory makes sense when we're just thinking about how Grogu got out of the temple, but it doesn't really explain what happened to him after or why his memory goes dark. But I think Jocasta Nu's story still serves the Palpatine theory. During their confrontation, Vader discovers that Nu had returned for the list of Force-sensitive children, a list that she possessed on a memory crystal. And Vader finally understands why his master wanted the old Jedi taken alive. Worried that his master Darth Sidious was seeking Force-sensitive children to replace him, Vader crushed the memory crystal containing the names of the children. And quick side note, this isn't Vader being a hero and saving the children, this is Vader continuing to be insecure that his master was plotting to replace him. Such is the story of Anakin's life. Jocasta's interaction with Vader tells us that even as the Empire arose, Palpatine was seeking out Force-sensitive children. So I think Palpatine would discover Grogu at the temple and immediately be drawn to the potential that he had. Just like the rest of us, the first being that Palpatine would likely think of when seeing Grogu would be the Jedi Grand Master Yoda, who was arguably the only one who could challenge him at that point. Palpatine's thoughts would be racing with ideas surrounding Grogu's potential. So I think from here, Palpatine would take Grogu from the temple and bring him to one of his many medical/lab facilities to conduct experiments. This is where Grogu's memory would go dark, due to constantly being drugged and experimented on. Grogu would live this dark existence for at least 23 years. That's the time from the destruction of the Jedi Temple to Palpatine's death in Return of the Jedi. Din Djarin finds him on the remote planet Arvala 7 roughly 5 years after Palpatine's death. If I had to guess, I would say that after Palpatine's death, many of his secret testing facilities were abandoned or moved to remote regions like Exegol, because much of Palpatine's work continues as he's able to return in a clone body. But perhaps in the wake of his death, though, some assets are lost while being moved to other facilities, and this is how Grogu would end up on Arvala 7. Or perhaps Grogu was simply left behind as the fractured Empire abandoned many of its facilities. But this brings us to Grogu being found by Mando in the first episode of The Mandalorian, and well, you know his story from there. I think Palpatine taking Grogu makes the most sense, especially when you think of the time between Grogu being at the Jedi Temple and the events of The Mandalorian. It also helps explain how he was in Imperial possession. But if you think someone else took Grogu from the temple, let me know. I would love to see your comments below. As always, have a great day, and may the Force be with you.